Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Honors Biology Room 500 with Mr. Man. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about chemical reactions and enzymes as our last little bit. We've talked about enzymes within DNA transcription, DNA translation. We've also even talked about enzymes when we look at DNA replication. And so we're going to talk about what they are and how do they do their functions and kind of why enzymes are so important for everything within life, even going back to photosynthesis or cellular respiration. So what we should be able to do is answer these questions. What are the parts of a chemical reaction? How can chemical changes be related to a chemical reactions? And what is the importance of enzymes in living organisms? So I know that you guys might not think this at home when you are laying down to go to sleep. However, you guys know my mantra within the first thing I told you about me, and that the part of me is the nerd. So when I think about it at night sometimes is, am I still digesting the food that I'm eating? Is my stomach growling? What's going on there? When I scrape my elbow, how does it heal? How muscles and bones grow and develop. For me, not so much, but for you all, still. And then all the things that happen inside your body that result in chemical reactions. And so these are some cool things to think about before we even talk about what enzymes are, because it's very interesting on kind of thinking about what all happens, where does it all come from? And so all living organisms require energy, as we talked about in week 1. Okay, and energy is the ability to do work of anything, whether that be click play on this Edpuzzle to listen to my lecture. And energy can occur in multiple forms, whether it be electrical, like through the nervous system, mechanical, chemical, thermal. Thermal's heat. And energy can be converted from one form into another. Now, it can't be created or destroyed. That's back to physical science. But it can be used from one form into the other, and we can use that through these chemical reactions. Now, substances can undergo physical change. They do not involve physical change, aka changing ice to water or water to water vapor. All we're doing is changing the movement of atoms and how fast they move, comparatively not what is going on with the chemical reaction. Now, chemical reaction is where we're getting to within enzymes. So chemical reactions break or create bonds between atoms, ions, molecules, and all they do is they create a new chemical combination, and energy is absorbed or released when bonds are broken and new ones are formed. And so one of the things that we talked about with ATP and ADP, if I add a bond, absorbing energy, or when I say quote creating energy, storing energy, and when I break that bond or make from ATP to ADP, I'm releasing energy. Okay? And so chemical reactions are written as reactants to products, which we already know, and this arrow is the change within the chemical properties. And you already know this from photosynthesis, cellular respiration, that we've already talked about previously. And so some chemical reactions are reversible, meaning the reaction can proceed in either direction. So the arrow can go to the right or the arrow can go to the left. They can go from reactants to products and products to reactants, back and forth. But then others can't. So chemical reactions change substances into different ones by breaking and forming chemical bonds. We've already talked about that. Reactants are changed during the chemical reaction, and products are made during the chemical reaction. So if we're talking about photosynthesis, okay, so our water and carbon dioxide go in to be able to produce sugar, oxygen. And so within that, right, our reactants go in, and those are things that are going to be rearranged. While our products, they're going to be the things that we've made because we rearrange those molecules. And so each element within the reaction must be present on each side of the reaction. So we're going to look at that here in a second as an example. So One of the things that you don't, like I'm not going to test you on, whether it be vocab words or anything like that, but bond energy is the amount of energy that breaks a bond. And so energy is added when the bond breaks, or added to break bonds. Energy is released when the bond forms. Okay? And so when a reaction is at equilibrium, the reactants and products form at the same rate. And so here we see one carbon, 3 oxygens, and 2 hydrogens. In this case, these are going to be my reactants. The arrow is going to form where my chemical reaction, and these are going to be my products. Still 2 hydrogens, still 1 carbon, still 3 oxygens. We just rearranged the formula. And so, how do we get these chemical reactions to start? Okay, well, we do this by this thing called activation energy. And it's the amount of energy that needs to be absorbed to start a chemical reaction. And it's an all or none. If I have the amount of energy needed for this chemical reaction to occur, I can go forth with the chemical reaction. But if my activation energy is here, but I need it to be here, there is not going to be a chemical reaction here. If I go higher than the activation energy will still occur. So, we have 2 types of reactions. We have exothermic and endothermic reaction. So, exothermic releases more energy than it absorbed. So, here's my reactants. I'm absorbing energy here. This is my activation energy right here to say, okay, it's time to carry on this chemical reaction. And then we're going to release energy as we reform these bonds. And at this point, I'm lower than what I started with energy-wise than my reactants. My products are lower than my reactants. So that's what an exothermic reaction is. Okay, reactants have a higher bond energies than products, and the excess energy is released by the reaction in form of heat. Endothermic, it's just going to be the opposite. Okay, so I have my reactants. I absorb energy in order to get to my activation energy for this chemical reaction to occur. And then my total energy released is higher than my reactants on the graph. So I've released less energy than what I added to make this reaction occur, or within this activation energy. So reactants have a lower bond energy than products, and energy must be absorbed by the reaction to make up the difference. And so in this case, the difference between my products here and where my reactants energy was here, we're going to absorb that energy back, or make it endothermic. It's going to bring it inside. So, many of the chemical reactions that help transfer energy in living things involve the transfer of electrons. So we have 2 things called oxidation and reduction. You're going to learn more about this in chemistry, so I'm not really worried about it for right now. But it's something that's very good. It's honors class. You know, you learn more than what you're supposed to. So here we go. So you probably remember like oxidation within cellular respiration. And so oxidation occurs, or reactions occur, when a reactant loses 1 or more electrons and becomes more positive. And reduction, from photosynthesis, Calvin cycle, we're reducing the charge. Reactions occur when a reaction gains 1 or more electrons and become more negative. Because electrons are negative, if we add electrons, we become more negative. If we lose electrons, we become more positive because we're losing the negative numbers. And so we have these things called redox reactions. And again, I'm not holding you accountable to this. This is just for your own benefit. Redox reaction or oxidation reduction reactions occur when a compound loses electrons and one compound gains electrons. And this is going to happen within, let's say, this A and B. Okay? So this A is going to be, it's a reducing agent. So it's going to be reduced. So it's going to add or give these electrons to my oxidizing agent. Okay, so my oxidizing agent is going to accept those electrons, and then since I made it more negative, it's reduced. Because my reducing agent gave the electrons away and made it more positive, it becomes oxidized. And so these things work together to accept, like oxygen is the final electron acceptor in cellular respiration. So now we're going to get into the main thing that we're talking about, okay? And these are our enzymes, and we refer to these as catalysts, okay? And what catalysts are substances that speed up chemical reactions, or what we call enzymes, okay? They're going to decrease the activation energy and increase the reaction rate. So because that I've decreased my amount of energy needed to go into the reaction, I'm going to increase how quickly my reaction can occur because I need less energy to put into it. So as you see here, my uncatalyzed is right here in this big old arrow. That's a lot of energy needed to go into the reaction to occur. This smaller arrow is what happens when I add an enzyme to a normal reaction, or a catalyst. It's going to lower the amount of energy, which means it's going to take less time to get to our endpoint. So enzymes are catalysts in living things, and they're needed in almost all processes in living things. And enzymes are usually proteins. Imagine that. We just talked about making proteins. Now we're talking about enzymes that are usually made of proteins. So some things that I want you to know about enzymes, okay? So the place where we have a space in the enzyme or in this protein is going to be called the active site. This is where our substrate, or what we would call our reactant, would go into to be able to make that chemical change. Okay, so this is an enzyme. The active site is what the substrate goes to. Okay, now when the substrate binds to the enzyme active site, it's called the enzyme substrate complex. Okay, and that's where the substrate binds to the active site. Then what's going to happen is the substrate is converted to produce products. It's going to make a chemical change of some sort. In this case, we brought in water to sucrose to create two new products, glucose and fructose. Okay? Those are going to be my products. So my substrate is going to be my reactants. My products is going to be what's produced after the active site. So enzymes are named for their substrate. So we talked about if you see the words ASE, think enzyme, like polymerase, helicase, ligase. Same rules apply, okay? Because they are named after what goes into the substrate. So lipase speeds up the breakdown of lipose, while amylase speeds up the breakdown of amylose. Lactase speeds up the breakdown of lactose. So if you're lactose intolerant, you have turned off the making of our enzyme lactase, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks. Okay, so enzyme catalyze only specific reactions based upon their conformation. So here's my substrate, here's my active site. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't get made. Okay, so molecules which enzymes work upon are known as enzymatic substrates, enzyme substrates. These are my substrates that go on enzymes. And my substrates, or my reactants, which we already talked about, bind to the active site of the enzyme to be able to produce our products. Now, each enzyme, though, is specific to its function. So the lactase cannot break down lactose and fructose and glucose. It can only break down lactose because of the shape of the active site and the shape of the molecule lactose. So it's called the lock and key model, and this helps illustrate how enzymes function. So substrates are brought together, they bond to the substrates. The bonds are weakened, so we can recreate those pairs or those bondings in a different form. So as you see here, they come in together. They have to fit together in order for this substrate to work, or this enzyme to work, to be able to produce our products. And so a cool example is a snake venom. And it has enzymes that break down membranes of a person's red blood cells to be able to create something like this, which could kill you if you don't have antivenom, okay, of that specific snake. And so it's one really cool thing because they're even used in poisonous snakes. So the shape of an enzyme can be altered by small changes in ionic composition, temperature, or pH. Those are very important. Okay, so high body temperature can cause death because at these temperatures, proteins undergo denaturing or a change in their three-dimensional shape. So this is my protein. So this is after I've made copied my DNA or my DNA. Then I've transcribed it into RNA, and then I've translated it into DNA or to amino acids. The amino acids are folded in the ribosome, and then they are processed through our rough ER Golgi apparatus, and then they're shipped out through vesicles to be able to do their functions. This is the folding that occurs. Okay, when the high temperatures happen, or higher temperatures than what they're used to or supposed to have, it unravels the protein, and proteins only function based on the shape of the amino acids. So if I lose the shape, I lose the function of the proteins. So that's going to be it for today. I hope that you guys learn a lot today. If you guys have any questions or anything, please let me know. If you have trouble on any of the assignments, please let me know, and I'll get you taken care of. Other than that, that's all I've got for you on enzymes today. We'll be able to do some practice next class period, and you guys will be golden for our assessment. I'll see you guys next time.